Okay, welcome everybody to the Philosophy Film Club, and welcome to our Game of Thrones Season 6 discussion. And I want to welcome here tonight, or today, for wherever you are in the world, but is Pim. Pim is all the way from Holland, and we also have Gabrielle. Gabrielle, you're in Chile, aren't you, at the moment? You
I
are
am
originally,
indeed.
yeah, you are originally from Canada, but yes, in Chile. So yeah, welcome guys, and oh boy, this was just to give you a little bit of a. We kind of briefly touched on it before we started, and we didn't want to spend ourselves all at once in that particular introduction before we joined the show. But yeah, I had mixed feelings about this season. I think it started pretty well, and it then got very, very kind of predictable and rather boring in the middle, and towards the end, still predictable but kind of exciting and some pretty shock and awe, I guess. You could almost say that Cersei had found her inner George Bush. I think that's how I felt, at least on that particular crescendo or explosion towards the end with the wildfire. But yeah, it was a bit of a mixed feeling, and I know we're going to have all the usual stuff about it veering away from the books. I was quite prepared for that. I didn't. It didn't really particularly bother me. I mean, the books are now, well, it's well past the books, of course, now, so it really is like in completely uncharted waters, at least from the book's perspective. But yeah, I mean, I'm still not. I'm still not going to give up on the series. I still found it entertaining. I still found it fun to watch, exciting at times. Some of the characters have developed, I felt. I think, without going into too much detail, but I felt, at least on the female perspective, there were, and of course the names now completely lose me. But there was two female characters, the young Ira rather, and of course the knighted lady, which I can't remember now. Help me, guys. What's the name now?
It's Brienne.
That's it, Brienne. Brianna Tarth, of course. Thanks, Pim. Yeah, I felt their characters kind of developed. Maybe you guys might argue with the otherwise with me, but as far as good, strong female characters, I think those two probably fit the bill, or footed the bill, should I say. Whereas I think the constant refrain to female superbness was got a little bit sort of predictable, and all too much like Star Wars. I think we mentioned this in our Star Wars hangout. But yeah, but overall, I thought I kind of enjoyed it. I'm kind of looking forward to the next one. I don't mind waiting a year for it. Frankly, it's not like I'm really on the edge of my seat. But you guys, I mean, how did you feel about it? Perhaps I'll bring you in, Pim.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. Though I don't think the start of the season was very good, and that might be because this season has probably revealed me as a snob. I'm afraid, yeah, I'm afraid that if I think if I didn't know that at the start of the season that George Martin wasn't as involved, I think if I hadn't known that, I would have given this season maybe a better chance. But I felt like this season didn't really have a theme or anything meta or anything that we can learn from it or anything. There was, for me, very little what you could call philosophical content in this season.
Why do you think that had to do with George Martin writing it?
Because I feel that his writing, if I just compare the previous seasons to the current season, I feel that his writing had more to it, had a deeper meaning. Like from the previous seasons, there was always this very strong theme that I see that has this no one really is good and everyone ends up getting hurt aspect to it. And I didn't
Right.
really feel that this season. This season had too many happy endings for a Game of Thrones story.
Oh, that's true. Actually, I hadn't considered that. You're right. I mean, it was. I mean, obviously we're trading right into the series here, but I mean, I'm thinking of oh gosh, again, names completely defeat me as I'm talking live. But
Describe them with an interpretive dance.
yeah, I'm thinking of the chap with the dogs, and
Oh, Ramsay.
Ramsey. Yes, of course. His demise was. It was kind of. I mean, it was. I mean, as much as it was cathartic, it was thoroughly predictable. There were moments, I guess, where you thought he got one up, but there were other moments where nah, nah. I mean, when he retreated back to the castle after having sent the army and the last of his army in to, it's like, what the hell are you doing, you crazy fool? But yeah, no, you're right. There were too many. I think, like you say, too many happy endings and not enough of the usual, at least the balance of the usual despair that comes with
Mm-hmm.
the show, I think. What did
Yeah,
you
and,
think,
oh,
Gabriel?
sorry.
I feel like the entire storyline revolving around Sansa was probably put in the hands of one special guy at the table, and he didn't have a clue what he was doing.
Right.
I'm laughing out loud very much now. Thank you for that. That's brilliant.
And a friend of mine who's more versed in how the plot plays out in the novels, he kind of cleared that up for me. He said that in the novels, she's never supposed to get sent to Winterfell, like that whole thing where she gets sold off to Ramsay and married to him and stuff. None of that is actually supposed to happen. And when he explained that, it made perfect sense because that's when everything started to go completely to shit.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah, certainly in the last series, there was. I mean, I know we'd discussed this last year, Pim, didn't we? I mean, it was definitely veering away from the books and quite substantially, and that was definitely one part of it for sure. Sorry, Gabe.
no, but like even aside from just the plot straying away from the books and stuff, just whoever was in charge of that, I don't know who or how many people or what, but it just seemed really like amateurish. They leaned too heavily on, classic plot devices. Like every payoff had to be foreshadowed somehow, and it's not isolated to that one storyline. Like the whole thing with the wildfire and stuff too. I mean, they always feel this need to foreshadow every outcome,
It was
which,
very Hollywood.
yeah, it was very Hollywood. Good way of expressing that. And like, the big battle of the bastards, right? Like the whole army saving the day at the last second was cheap, and that just felt like laziness. And then Jon Snow being such a horrible tactician, and that whole battle playing out the way it did was just, it made him look borderline retarded.
Yeah.
And then how all of a sudden Ramsay's army turned into like Roman centurions with a phalanx tactic, and like all of a sudden there was a pile of bodies taller than a wall that you could climb on. They were neatly stacked, and like just I don't know. It seems like the realism was just sucked right out of it. Of course, we have to give a little breadth every now and then for the odd little magical occurrence, right? But this isn't even magic. This is just stupidity.
Yeah, he was almost doing. It was almost like the last battle against Ramsey in the last series. And it was almost as bad as that. It was probably worse actually in many ways.
But I have to disagree. I'm sorry, but I think this is a very important point you're making. And I think the difference between earlier battles, because you're referring to the Stannis Ramsay battle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, Stannis had there was no going back for Stannis. he was frozen stiff. He either had to take Winterfell or he was dead anyway. So he lost the battle the moment he left Castle Black, and that is one of the things that I loved about Game of Thrones. People make bad decisions, and they get stuck, and there's no way out anymore. And they're not retarded. They just gambled and lost, and that's very real. We can connect with that, even though we can't connect with the gruesome reality of Westeros. But this Jon Snow just rushing into battle, which was predicted 2.5 episodes before. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. For 2.5 episodes long, don't do it, don't do it. Of course he does it anyway. That's beyond idiotic. It's as Gabriel said, it's retarded, but not in a believable way.
Yeah, actually, you make a good point there, Pim. You're right. I hadn't really considered that. And one of the things I thought about Jon Snow, I think ever since he'd been resurrected by the red whatever princess her name is or whatever, he'd been on this kind of couldn't care less, almost nihilistic vent, almost. Didn't you get that impression? Not that makes the his stupidity of going into battle at that time any the better. Just perhaps that had some element to it. What do you think?
I think when the stakes are that high, you can't afford any personal character shortcomings like that.
Sure.
And Sansa was in that tent with him while they were drawing up the plans, and she should have spoken up and told them all that she had some possible options to work with, and there was no communication. Jon Snow was just being an idiot, and everyone followed him into the battlefield without any decent plan whatsoever.
Right. I guess she did, but she did talk to him. But yeah, like she did keep it away, and then of course he said on the walls of of the castle, he said, we need to talk to each other more. Couldn't have said it any more deeply, I guess. But yeah, you're right. There was a lot of misinformation.
The time for that conversation is before you go into the life and death situation, though, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And all of this has left me just intensely frustrated with this season. I mean, I shouldn't exaggerate, not that frustrating, but compared to previous seasons, it's just you see this going down, but you see it going down in a way that just not like this, like that scene from The Matrix. Not like this. You see it happening, not like this.
Right. We can discuss a little bit more about what's happened to the show more broadly maybe towards the end, but I wanted to sort of touch, because I already touched a little bit on it already, and I wondered if you guys have picked up on it. I know some people in the film club had, and this business of the girl power in this whole, literally every female having some amazing strength of ability and all that sort of thing, and it just seemed to be throughout the whole of this particular series very, very it's always been there, even in the past, but I think a lot of those characters, why I talked about Brianna Tarth and Ira, because in some ways they have earned their let's say their Jedi status, let's say, but the other women, not so much, but yet they were given it, sort of thing. I just wondered what did you think about that kind of the way that those characters were kind of eulogized or made into bigger than they should have been.
Usually that kind of stuff can annoy me if it's not set up properly. But I feel like with the characters that they focused on, Arya, Sansa, Cersei, and the Knight, Brynn, they did a decent job of setting them up and at least giving some background as to why they have the abilities they have and why they're in the psychological state with which they're wielding this power now. Like, Cersei seems to have basically been following along parallel with Claire Underwood from House of Cards. She's she's had this humanity, this bullshit rationale, right? I'm protecting my children, all that stuff, that bit of humanness. And now that that's all stripped away, she's finally come to terms with the fact that she's just a monster that wants a whole lot of power, right?
Right. Right.
And I'd like to add to that that some of the women are actually merged characters. Like, for example, Daenerys is merged, and Sansa is a merged character. So they have more story, and so more stuff happening to them than maybe some characters should have. Like, I don't know whether it would happen in the books, but Tyrion, for example, is not supposed to end up with Daenerys, at least not yet.
Hmm.
And I think that also leads to the how do you say that? My English is failing me. The idea that this is happening, but a perception, the perception. But I think it's not. I think it's not what's occurring. I don't see it.
Right. Right.
And I would like to, like, if you have, do you have like a character in mind for whom you think that that her female powers are exaggerated, so to say?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, I mean, Cersei to some degree, that she was able to sort of get away with doing what she did with the wildfire. I mean, that would have taken some planning, some organisation, and it seemed, and also interestingly, I mean, I was thinking, what was so interesting about that was how the children were involved in that particular, you know, the way that they got the little sparrow down into the dungeons underneath, sort of thing, and the children had been very much looked after by, well, those poor children to some degree had been fed um, by the high sparrows, and also had also been very much been a part of what's her name, the king's queen, and I can't remember her name either now, but
Marjorie?
Marjorie, yeah, and so there seemed a sort of disconnect from those children. I mean, I could understand how they went for the Maester, because obviously he was a paedophile of some description, or at least that had been alluded to. But I didn't really quite understand how that completely connected with the characters that were about to be, literally killed. And so there was some sort of, I thought there would have been more. I wouldn't have thought Cersei could have gotten away with that in the same degree that, given her walk of shame and that there was some suspicion about her, she was up for trial. There would have been a lot of what's his name? There would have been a lot of little birds, you know, that would have known about that plot, you know.
Yeah, I think that's all very circumstantial.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'd give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I'm sure, like, even if they had become accustomed to accepting handouts from the church or something, if Cersei came along and said, okay, you know, here's payments more than you've ever seen in your whole life to do this special job or something, you know, people just do whatever they're paid to, so.
Yeah, that's plausible. Yeah. I just wonder with shifts of power, though, whether shifts of power can be bought off so quickly, you know. But you might be right. Yeah, I mean there is some poetic license with it all, you know. But I think it was generally, I mean, going even like you say, like even with the way that Sansa would had this kind of, you know, kept, you know, had all this kind of sudden power all of a sudden, and I guess, you know, it kind of, you know, she was obviously manipulating to some degree Littlefinger, etc., given the way that he'd obviously sold her off and to Ramsay and stuff, and I could totally understand her fury at that, and her ability to take advantage, let's say, and of course that's what she did in that regard. But yeah, I just felt that there was too much overplay on the female superiority. And where it was particularly well done, I thought, was Ira and Brianna Tarth. I thought it was done much more realistically. It felt more like let's say a rite of passage for those two. They'd kind of got to that place. I mean, when Ira killed gosh, another name that loses me, but she kills the old king.
Arya, and she kills Walder Frey.
Walder Frey, that's it. When she kills Walder Frey, I mean that was good, proper spooky and really well done, you know. And I thought that was very cleverly done, especially the bit even beforehand where, you know, supposedly she was giving the eye to you know, to Jamie and stuff like that, when it was really just a kind of ruse and all of that. It was very well done, I thought, and she kind of deserved that kind of power, I think. At least, you know, given her background and history in all of the seasons, you know.
Yeah,
Well, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all right. I'm just saying, like, she definitely seems to be the one character that they have done a good job at really building up from nothing to something over a very gradual, painful process.
Yeah.
Yeah, Arya has completed the firewalks. Like what we want to see in a character who has to achieve some form of skill or competence, is we like to see them do the whole the whole Rambo style training with the cutscenes, and then overcome an obstacle, overcome some sort of trial by fire, and that's what happened with Arya. She has been training with the whole getting blind thing, and then getting hit with sticks and hitting back, and then she overcame the other girl that was training her, the waif, and now she is a believable kind of faceless man assassin. But she had to work 2 seasons for that.
Yes. Yeah, it was very well done, I think. And also, what were your thoughts, guys, on Brianna Tarth? Because I had similar. I mean, she's obviously different to some degree, and she's had her ups and downs, sort of thing. But she kind of came back, I felt, rather well as well. Or was she a non-starter for you guys?
I'm not sure in what way she developed this season. I think she faced her demon, in the sense that she was protecting all kinds of Starks and failing at it, and now she finally managed to protect the Stark. But I think she's a super sad character, and it's very. I think she's a very ironic character, in the sense that you have this woman who is not pretty and cannot land a prince with her princessly charms, and in a very literal sense, she donned herself an armor, and it's not done her very good in terms of happiness, and she's constantly running up to walls of not being able to achieve what she really wants to achieve, and now finally she achieved something, but it's a very minor goal, and it's not even her own goal. So
it's bittersweet, I guess. Yeah.
I think she's a very, very sad character, and I feel poorly for her. She's a very well done character, but the character itself is very sad.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of what I like about her, is the fact that she has had all this tribulations, and that she sort of has attempted to make the best. Now, of course, it's not necessarily. You could argue it's not necessarily the best path for her, perhaps, but you know, given the background of the whole this kind of way of life in Game of Thrones. She and maybe she's not as glorious and as Ira is in that regard, but there is a sort of strength about her. I felt that even within all the sort of the inner veil of tears that might be going on with her, if that's not so verbose to say, but but within all that sadness, there is a kind of character in her, that has more value than it would have had if she, attempted to just sit back on her laurels and, that kind of thing.
She's clad in iron in more than one way.
Right. Okay. Was there any other characters or anything else that particularly either of you guys had anything you thought were particularly good for you?
Not really, no.
So the story of this season, right?
Well,
Yeah.
but that kind of is the problem of this season, is that it's very difficult to. Yeah, because this is also one thing that I liked very much of the previous seasons. And one of my favorite characters was Oberyn Martell, and I thought that his character, the actor portraying him, and the storyline around him was all just excellently done. And I think it's one of the highlights of Game of Thrones, including the way it ended. Even though I can't watch that scene because it was way too gruesome for me. But he just, I miss something like this in this season. Something that that surprises me, that first delights me, that makes me laugh, and then makes me cry, and then shocks me. There was no real roller coaster like that this season, and there wasn't a character that did that for me. I think the closest would be Arya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
I'd
still
agree with that.
kind of predictable what happened to Arya.
Well, I think not only was it predictable, but we were waiting for it to happen, and it was taking its sweet time, and we're like, come on, get to that spot. And finally she got there at the very end. Because now she can sweep through like a little child assassin and clean up all the messes that no one else wants to clean up.
Yeah, are we ready to talk about what to expect from her, or is there? Do we want to?
I just wanted to quickly just talk about, because there was a really excellent introduction of a new character. He only lasted one episode, of course. And again, I'm completely lost for names.
Yeah, but is it the one with the Hound?
Yeah, with the Hound, the guy.
The ex-soldier.
He played Swearingen in the HBO series. Oh God, I can't remember now. But yes,
You're so bad with names.
I know, I'm dreadful. But yeah, I mean, he was a very brief. It was almost like a 100-meter sprint into his character, and then literally that was it. He was done and dusted. But also like you brought up the Hound. I mean, the Hound coming back all of a sudden out of nowhere, and obviously meeting death where he could, like in his usual fashion. But I thought that was an interesting. But again, it's sort of just my criticism of it. It was almost like a 100-meter sprint, just trying to sort of give us some kind of new. Something new to it, but then it kind of just didn't seem to have any point, even though I thought I really enjoyed that episode. I enjoyed those characters coming back and stuff, but in the moment, but actually afterwards I sort of thought, well, what was the point of that? But maybe with the Hound we'll obviously see later in later seasons. But
it's kind of like they had an intern and they had to give the intern something to do, but of course they couldn't let that continue on throughout the series.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very interesting scene because of the dialogue between the villagers to be and those hedge knights who came up to have a chat with them. It was very Monty Python, but without the humor.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know what the point of all that was. Like, is it to remind us that all the peasants in Westeros are still
Peasants.
fucked?
Yeah, yeah. I think they could have done so much better with that guy, that actor. You know, there was
Oh.
great potential with him. He has great presence, but unfortunately it was short lived. You know,
Well,
literally.
in that regard, one of my favorite actors from all times. I used to watch Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and so Alexander Siddig has always been a favorite actor. And to see his plotline get demolished this season kind of hurt a little bit.
Right.
I had hoped to see more of him, but it wasn't to be.
Okay, well let's perhaps talk about the overall kind of feel of where this particular show went in terms of how, you know, why was it so poor, why was it so lacking in strong characters, strong plot lines, all that kind of thing. And one of the theories, I mean, this is I guess a usual theory thrown out, these days, is as a sort of dumbing down of the characters, maybe. Um, and in this regard, maybe just maybe the HBO series wanted to get more bums on seats, that kind of thing. I don't know, but that was one of my faults. I really felt it was dumbed down. It wasn't. I listened to a thing that a commentator or author, science fiction author, fantasy fiction author, Vox Day, said about it, and he found all the plot lines in this particular series, every one of them predictable. And he almost, I think he was saying to his wife, and his wife had to tell him to shut up, I think, at some point. He was actually telling his wife, this is what's going to happen, and it happened every time. And I just wonder if this is just a commercial decision. I mean, maybe there are other reasons, of course, which we can discuss, but I got the impression this was highly advertised. I mean, it was all over the London Tube, all over, even not on just on the London Tube. It was on billboards on around London, etc. It was highly advertised, much more so than I'd ever seen any other Game of Thrones season. So I wonder if that had anything to do with it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm confused by that as well because I feel like they were already like the most popular television series ever, almost.
Hmm.
Of course, I don't know about the ratings and I don't know about the profits, but I I find it difficult to believe that they needed more,
Right.
but I can understand that they wanted more. And not having the shackles of the earlier books, I can imagine that they made decisions to make things more popular. And we can see that in a lot of modern content, like Star Wars, of course.
Hmm.
Um, but I also see it in some video games, for example, that I like to play. So yeah, I don't know. I see it, but I'm puzzled as to why.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It is puzzling because, like you say, it was a highly popular show. It had a massive following anyway. Fans would always encourage people who hadn't watched it to watch it. I mean, it had had a word of mouth uh, quality, a marketing quality to it that not a lot of TV series necessarily have. So yeah, it did seem strange. But on the other hand, yeah, they'd always want to get more ratings, higher ratings, more bums on seats, I guess.
Well, and one thing to support that is that the final two episodes of this season are the two highest rated episodes of anything ever on IMDb.
Really?
I think
Wow.
so. I'm gonna look it up now. But that does support the idea that whatever they were doing was getting them at least the criticism that they were looking for.
Mm,
I don't think criticism is the right word. ratings.
Right, the ratings all.
Well, at
Yeah.
least are the way that people valued it in terms of not costing them
The
anything.
critical acclaim. The critical acclaim. I think you
Yeah,
meant.
something like that. And
Yeah.
that saddens me greatly because the last two episodes were just spectacle and
Mm.
no development whatsoever.
Yeah.
Everything was already planned out. All the dies were cast in the earlier episodes, and the final two were just playing it out. And it saddens me greatly that that is what people value the most out of Game of Thrones. Like from not just this season, but all of Game of Thrones.
Mm. Yeah.
This last episode, at least the first half of it anyway, played out more like a music video. It had a nice flow to it. The soundtrack was fantastic. I actually
Yeah, the
just
sound was really good this season.
I just downloaded the soundtrack from the final episode, and like I don't even care about the episode itself really, but that was definitely its strong point as far
I'm
as I know.
curious. Who was
It's a
the
9.9 and a 10 out of 10 for the final two episodes.
who was the composer on that music? Was it Philip Glass by any chance?
I'm not sure.
Interesting, because I got the impression it was a Glass type of music. It's
It's in here somewhere.
look.
No, it says someone named Ramin Djawadi.
Ah, okay. So it's very, very similar to Philip Glass. That kind of repetitive sort of beat sound that it was. It was, yeah, like I say, it was really well. The music was brilliant, but like you say, it was a kind of keeping. It was like keeping suspense. It kept suspense for almost about 20 minutes through the movie, almost.
Yeah.
Very
Also,
well.
I need to eat my words a little bit. The episode that I was referring to as like the quintessential Game of Thrones episode, being the demise of Oberyn Martell, also got a 9.7 out of 10. So I was wrong on the ratings being that big of a deal.
Right. Okay. Fair play. Fair play. So yeah, So how are you feeling about the next season? Are you feeling like I was feeling, like I said at the beginning of the show, like, I can wait, but I will definitely watch it, but I'm not,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the good stuff is gone, and now we just have two more seasons like these final two episodes. That's my bet. The first season now is going to be about whatever West.
Yeah, I know, Jeff, when we were talking on House of Cards, the last show we did, and he sort of had this, he has this impression that if series go up to the 7th series, and usually by the 6th, they're normally done, and if they go beyond that, and sometimes even by the 6th series, they can start to sort of wane a bit. But he said as soon as they go into the 7th territory, they really begin to wane a lot more.
Right. Which is probably why the Star Trek series always were capped at 7 seasons.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and many other shows. In fact, I can name a couple who should have kept it at 6 or 5. One of my favorite all-time series is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was a fantastically emotional and connective series in the vehicle of this horror show, and it had a fantastic ending at season 5 with Buffy sacrificing herself in a true sadness manner. And then they had to get her back from the dead for 2 more seasons, which did deliver a musical episode, which I think every series should have.
Right.
But it was not. It was not good for the ratings.
It wasn't the same, was it? No.
No, it wasn't the same. Which was, in fact, what the musical episode was about.
Yeah, it's such a shame that. Yeah, right. But it's such a shame that this. I really wish people would just, concentrate on a really good show, and not have to kowtow to the ratings and stuff like that. And this is what I really hoped about HBO, and I guess I'm going to criticise HBO here because they started out as an entity really well. I mean, they produced initially they produced The Wire, The Sopranos. You could argue The Sopranos didn't necessarily need to go into season 6, but at least it stops at season 6. But these were great. These were brilliant shows. I mean, I was talking about Swearingen from I cannot remember the damn name now, but and that only was 3 seasons long, if I remember rightly, about the Wild West, and these were great shows. They did, and it seems now poor old HBO has now fallen into this kind of ratings issue. Yeah, whilst they're not cajoled by the advertisers anymore, which is which was one of HBO's major successes, that they weren't being controlled by the advertisers like they were, on ABC and other networks, other American networks. They were fully reliant on subscribers, and stuff like that, which was great, and it worked for that moment. But it seems that maybe now HBO have gotten so big that we need some competition in there. Start knocking out some good stuff.
I think they're just responding to the incentive of more eyeballs, more people subscribing,
Right.
which the result of that is that more people are happy, right? So, I mean, the more, critical snobs like us might not think that the standards are up as high, but more people are walking away satisfied from it. So I guess the net outcome has to be considered positive, right?
That's a good point, mate.
I kind of disagree with that. You were talking about Deadwood, by the way, Patrick?
Oh, Deadwood, yeah.
Yeah. I think HBO is cashing in on customer loyalty. Customer loyalty is normally something that you build up so that you can have error room. You have room to work with in experimenting. So if you have a lot of customer loyalty, you can make more mistakes, and the people will still love you for it. But they are cashing in their customer loyalty not for room of mistakes, but for short-term viewership. So they are trading away their loyal customers for volume, which is a short-term profit margin that is very insane, but in the long term it's going to be their demise. And we've seen this happen with video games a lot. For example, a company like Blizzard has an insane amount of loyal customers, but since they've worked together with Activision, they've dumbed down all their games basically to everything with just a lot of flashy colors and nice sounds. So I'm polarizing a lot here, and I don't know all that much about, for example, a game like Overwatch, which I didn't play yet, but I am an avid fan of the Diablo series, for example, and Diablo 3 is an incomparable game to Diablo 2. It's like it's a Pokemon game or something. It's just completely childish.
It's chalk and cheese, isn't it? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's completely childish, and it's dumbed down to a very, very high degree. Another example would be Electronic Arts, which has cashed in on its customer loyalty, and they are now very much into customer loyalty debt, which is going to burn up as soon as they bring out 3 or 4 bad games in a row. Another example would be Paradox Interactive, which I enjoy very much, who make great grand strategy games like Europa Universalis or Crusader Kings. They've recently released 2 new games, Stellaris and Hearts of Iron 4, which are very, very dumbed down compared to their earlier titles. I see it happen all over the place. I can't fault them for it because they're making a lot of money, but they are cashing in their loyal customers.
Yeah.
Do you think that they're also, as they do that, possibly collecting new customers to offset that?
Yeah, of course they are, because they are making a lot of money, and that money can only come from one source. But I don't think they're making customer loyalty, because what they are getting, like, it's comparable to pop music, right? There's a lot more. I can't English today. There's a lot more. Yeah. Like if you look at something like boy band fans, like that's something that doesn't really stick. It's a phase that people go through, or they move on to the next boy band, or they grow up and they have fond memories, but they don't really cash out on it anymore. So it's a very narrow but very steep peak in sales that doesn't translate to a long-term exchange of value.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly understand that point, because you can, by HBO keeping its the type of loyalty that it had back in the early 2000s with the series, with the quality of productions that it made back then. In some ways, it was going out on a limb, and sure, I mean, all these companies would like to make more money, and I'm quite sure of that. But but I think we're now entering the niche market. Now, of course, maybe HBO is a little bit before its time in a sense, or was before its time. So now it can try and muster lots of custom over the next 10 years. But I mean, if I do think though, if it starts knocking out productions like it's doing now, at least from the latest season, I think it's likely to end up in the realms of ABC territory, where they can, because of course the Overton window, in the sense of what's acceptable on television, has changed, from what it was in 2000. And The Sopranos was not acceptable to advertisers back in 2000 when it started to be when it was first being aired. The Wire as well wasn't acceptable. You couldn't have put that on a normal US broadcasting television network. It wouldn't have accepted it. It might have accepted it. Well, they did accept it on Channel 4 in the UK, of course, but perhaps our advertisers are a little bit less skittish here, But I would say that's definitely changed now. I mean, what The Sopranos, I would imagine now, is thoroughly acceptable, probably even on ABC News, rather ABC and the general networks. I mean, Gabriel, you better tell me otherwise. Perhaps that wasn't the case, but I would say it is. And so they haven't shifted that. They haven't shifted their position. They've kind of remained in the same position, but now they're almost seeming kind of mainstream now.
Yeah, I mean, The Sopranos was perfectly acceptable in Canada when it first came out.
Right.
So where I grew up, we didn't really have that issue so much. I mean, it wasn't prime time. It was later at night, but I think it's only the U.S. market that really had that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is a very natural thing to occur for companies that cater to expanding niches, because there is this flex point where they get so many more customers for the same amount of effort that their profit margin just becomes so insane that they have to go somewhere with all that money. So they have to expand, and they have to grow, and they have to get new people, and they have to find new directions. And usually that means that they just want to move to a direction of even more cash flow. Right. And I think this is the gift and the curse of being successful in the service industry. And I think we see this in almost any example of a truly, truly successful company. I bet you could place this pattern on Facebook and Google as well. And I think even to a degree, but this may be heresy, on staff.
Right. Right. Well, listen. Should we bring it to a close now? I just want to obviously.
Well, let's end on a highlight. Let's name 5 things we liked about this season.
I don't know if I have 5 things. So.
Well, we already named the soundtrack, and I think the soundtrack was very, very good.
Yeah.
And having seen the recent series, season 2 of Marco Polo, I think also that the CGI was really, really good compared to some other shows out there.
Yeah. Well, maybe we could name 5 between us. I could. Okay, so I could probably say. Oh, whilst the Oh gosh, now I'm struggling now. I'm struggling to find a good part of this. I mean, other than what we've already discussed, because Ira, I think, was one of the main characters. She was definitely the queen of the show, I think. Um, but beyond that, I'm a bit lost. Gabe, do you have anything?
Um, everybody seemed to like the revelation of Hodor's backstory there.
Mm.
Right. Hold the door. I think that was the biggest laugh I ever got out of the whole season, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's another example of being so over dramatized. I mean,
Yes.
it could have been very beautifully done, but instead they chose to do it Hollywood. Oh, I'm so sad. So
Yeah.
sad for Hodor. He deserved better.
He did, didn't he? He did. For all that
He held the
carrying.
door, man.
He did.
Yeah. Well, listen, guys. Well, thanks for joining us, and yeah, I don't know what. I look forward to the next show, but I'm not sort of hanging on bated breath for it. But like neither of you are either. But yeah, it should be fun. I think it'll be something as Jeff Boland says, I might be playing Candy Crush while I watch the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just gonna be a show now. It's not gonna be the show anymore.
No. Well, listen, guys, thanks a lot, and hopefully, I think we got our next show. Just to give listeners an idea of our next show, there's we're going to be doing. I'm going to be doing our World War II season with Jeff Boland, and I'm hopefully doing a children's season with another listener as well. So those are things to look forward to. There are a couple of other things in the pipeline which I won't necessarily mention just now, but yeah, looking forward to that. And listen, guys, thanks a lot, and have a great evening, day, whatever, and speak to you all soon. Okay? Good night.
Yeah. See you later.
Bye bye.